Hello, hello, hello. So let's get started on this instructional piece. So I'm not going to walk you through me doing a project in this case because it's going to be totally different than yours. So what I am going to do is first make a project. I thought I had one there, but I'm thinking of a couple years ago when I had one. So make sure new project window. Your last name, instructional, cool, accept, and then I'm going to show you how to create some bits and bobs for it. So some of the things that you're going to need are things like threads, gears, little latches, screws. You know, these types of things are going to add detail to it and are kind of vital to creating something that looks like it could come apart. So I'm going to make a pipe, just so you can see there's a pipe. Don't be afraid to explore some of these tools because some of these things that are here are basically things that you may need at some point. Oops. So something like this is good if I needed threads like inside here. Let's see, radius. Okay, so I can make this obviously a bit bigger. You want to keep all your divisions low. So this being 20 is kind of overkill, maybe 10. Would be a good number. That's plenty of divisions there. Play with the height a little bit. I like to do everything here as opposed to up here. Like I could have just scaled that up, but if I did, then what's going to happen is, and I have one, these numbers are changed. I don't like that. So let's say I needed to add threads to this item. So create polygon, helix. There we go. And you can kind of see they already kind of look like threads, but I just need to play with this. So I go to the width. And there they go. Doesn't matter they intersect. I can't have them popping through. I need them in the inside. I need their radius down, so maybe 0.1. That's cool. 50 coils is maybe too much. Let's go to 20 or 10. Look at that. 10 fits perfectly because it's the same number. Awesome. And it's cool as we hit 3 on this, let's say, and 3 on this. Well, once we add some bevels, then it'll like match up pretty close. Okay. So that's pretty cool. If we need more threads inside here, then we can go to our coils and let's say add 30 threads. That's way too many. 15, 10, 8. You can kind of see there's threading there. 4. There we go. So I was able to add one more. What else? Subdivision axis. So these are all rounded. We don't need them to be rounded. So I can set this to 4 and it'll actually look a bit more like threads because they'll be actually harder edges. Okay, pretty cool stuff. All right, so now on here, let's say I added a edge loop. Right, so just add a couple edge loops really close to the edges right here. I could also add bevels to this and that would be acceptable too. But I'm assuming that at some point I'm going to hit 3 and smooth this out before I render. So I'm just adding these little pieces and that will hold it well enough so that it's nice and tight. There we go. Okay, so now we have that nice and tight. And then the same thing would happen here, but not so much, right? Because if that's at 3, nobody's really going to notice that, right? If we needed it tighter though, I could go into, oops, come on, this edge here, right there. And I just double click it, it goes all the way around, and I could add a bevel. And then I'll shrink it down to like 0.1, maybe add another segment. And so now when I hit 3, you'll see I still maintain that sharp edge right there, and it still fits inside of that thing. Okay, so now I have basically an opening and then I have some threads. And this thread thing can be used anywhere, right? So I could even, like, I need something to screw into here. Let's say like a light bulb type thing. I don't need a cube for this. Why'd you grab a cube, Sean? Let's go to cylinder. How many divisions? You guessed it. 10 divisions. If you can type it, you can get it. I go to about there. I duplicate this and scoot it up. hey look, we have matching threads now. Okay, now it doesn't matter that they don't match up perfectly. It doesn't matter because nobody's going to see it. We're not zoomed in that close on it. Let's go to insert edge loop. I'm going to drop it in here. I'm going to make this bigger. Right? If I'm making a light bulb, that's what it would kind of look like. I go extrude, pull it up. I'm going to extrude again. Oops. What software am I in? Maya. Okay. Uh-oh. See, I ruined it now. There we go. Too many hotkeys. I just can't keep them all straight. There we go. Alright, so now I can just drop in some edge loops right there. Maybe an edge loop down here. Maybe an edge loop. I don't think I need any more. That should be good. Yep. And then I just need to maybe shrink down a little thing here. There's always like that little nub of stuff. Now here's a trick. I need to grab all these faces. I go inside and just grab that face. See how easy that is? Instead of trying to click all the way around it. And then there I am, just scooting that down, extruding it again, scaling it in. There we go. And I'll go to edge loop and maybe drop one in here. And now I can hit 3 and look at it, we got ourselves a light bulb. Hooray. Okay. Cool. And maybe I'll give this a little taper too, just because it's going to bother me if I don't. So I'm going to just go to my edges and just double clicking all those, pulling it up. There you go. Just a nice little taper on it. Okay. Cool. I think this edge here could just use that. I'm not even using this for anything, it's just going to bother me if I don't do that. Okay, and while we're at it, right, just duplicate this over here. If you need different kinds of light bulbs, we can grab, let's say, let me hit 1. Let's go to our animation, let's go to our deform, let's go to our create nonlinear, let's go to our twist. And if I go to the twist, and I go to my start angle, so I can twist it. I want the end angle though. There we go. And then if I don't want the bottom to twist, all I have to do is raise this up, you know, to where the I want to start twisting. And so now I'll have just this kind of fancier light bulb. And if I really go, you know, far on this, like maybe like that or so. There we go. And then, and so what I'm doing is I'm just double clicking each one of these. And I'm going to hold down Shift or Control and deselect this. And make sure I didn't select anything. You see there's still a couple little pieces I missed. Really close in there. Yippers. Cool. And then I can go to my bevel. And then hit 3, and look at that fancy light bulb. Woo! They look good. Alright, so I click this. Make sure you delete history after everything's done modeled. So I'm done modeling this, and delete history and all this stuff. Okay, so very quickly I can create some very cool shapes just by doing that kind of stuff. I think I've done this before, but just let's do it again. If I go to a pipe, I give this 6 sides, like so. And then I go into here, and here, actually the whole thing. And I just add a bevel to this. A little bit tighter. There we go. So now we have like a bolt. There we go. And then we could use obviously the same technique to create like a screw or something. I could make a cube here. And I'm going to smooth it out. So I go to Mesh Smooth. And I do that again. There we go. And that gives me these faces. That's all I was after here. So if I wanted just a flat head, I can grab those. If I want Phillips, I can also grab these. Now that's pretty chunky for a Phillips or a flathead. So let's just scale these in a little bit. So I just take these and I just scooch that in. And then, oops, not too much. There we go. Let's scooch that in. And you see how I'm just creating that little plus sign right there. And now if I just grab the faces and flatten it out, whoopsie. There we go. And then bring it down. And now I can grab that, make sure I don't grab anything else, extrude, push it down. Now when I hit 3, I pretty much have, here's the Phillips thing. We could also go into this here. Now this is going to create some messy geometry, so you may want to clean it up. So if I just go to bevel, there it is. So I beveled that a little bit tighter, like 0.2, yeah, that's good. Okay, so it's a little bit tighter right there. And obviously I could undo that and do that to all the corners, right? So wherever I need it to be sharp, like in all of these 4 corners here, I can grab those 4 corners and do that. Even on the bottom, where it should be a bit sharper also, I can do that too. But keep in mind, like, our view for what we're seeing, it's very unusual if someone were to see the individual screws that close. They just need some sort of indication that you have something that looks like it could be a screw from that distance away. Okay, so even all of this stuff here, I'm just grabbing all of this, and all of this, all of this, all of this, all that, all that. There we go. And then we'll go to bevel, and then like 0.2, cool. There we go. That's much better than, you know, what we had a minute ago, just by beveling the right stuff. And then we don't need all this, right? That's just junk. And then this is stuff that we could flatten. So I'm just grabbing that and flattening it. Maybe we'll just move that up too. Same thing here. We'll just grab all this and move it up. And then I want to close it. So I'm just going to grab all this and just go to fill hole. Now I can't leave it like that because it'll create this weird puckering. So I'm going to extrude it inward. Come on. And then I'm going to right click and say poke face. And you'll see that it fills it in. Nice and neat. It's a triangle, but it works. Okay, so now we can use that as the head for one of our screws or bolts or whatever. Okay. So that's pretty neat. What else do we need? Gears. Let's make a gear. All right, so gears are simple too. A lot of these you kind of have to just think about the basic shapes of it and how you can create it off of that basic shape. So I'm going to create a pipe. Where are you at? There you is. I'm just moving all this stuff down. Obviously you can move it wherever you need to. So we want to get obviously the height correct for this thing. I actually don't need all of this. I'm just going to delete all that stuff. And this one I do want to keep the divisions, right? So I need, for this one I need to have 20 divisions because of how I need to pull out each one of these pieces. If you wanted one with less divisions or thicker spikes, then you could have less subdivisions here. Or if you wanted ones that had thinner ones, then you would go with more divisions there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to each one of these things, every like other one. Like so. There we go. I'm going to extrude, and then I'm going to just pull it off. Okay, so that gives me the basic shape of my gear. Then I can just extrude this and pull it up or pull it down or whatever. Oops. And now I have my gear. Now I could adjust this further. Let me undo. There we go. And I'm going to extrude again. And I'm going to pull this out. And then what I could do is come over here to taper. And I could taper this down. Maybe. Nope. Offset. Nope. Thickness. One of these will let me do it. Yep. Maybe I just grab the red. There we go. The last thing you try, right? Because why else would you keep trying if you needed more or whatever? Excuse me. So now I can extrude that whole thing again, and now I will have another gear. Okay. And again, you want bevels on all your stuff. So go in here to your edges, grab all your edges, use something like the constraints. Where you at? There you is. Current, angle, do 125, let's do 75, activate it. I think that's everything. These are just guesses. I don't know if those are the right numbers, but it selected the stuff I needed. That's all that's important. Now I can bevel it. Close and reset this. Set this down to a lower number, and now I have a nice gear with some nice bevels on it. And when I smooth it, you can see it actually looks like a pretty nice gear as well. Now it didn't select these ones, so that was, you know, maybe I do want those. So that's where we just hit undo, and then we do it again, right? So I mark it again. There we go. And then we go back to select, go back to constraints, go back to geo, current, angle. I'm going to lower these, so 50, let's say, and raise this, 150. Activate. There we go. Now I got it. So now close and reset. Now bevel. Now set this down. Cool. That's a pretty sweet gear. Okay. So now what I can do is, let's say I needed just something to hold this. So I'm going to go to my cylinder. And I'm going to shrink it down a smidgy to 0.8, 0.7, 0.6. So close. 0.5, that looks like it's pretty close. Maybe I'll just make this a little bigger. There we go. Okay. So now I can take this and maybe just squish that a little bit. Like that. And then I can add an edge loop here, an edge loop there, and then grab these and extrude and pull it out. Oops. And then I need to grab these, okay, both of those, extrude that, pull that out. Okay, so I create a little gear mechanism that's holding this, and then just like before, we want to go through and add bevels all over this thing. There we go. So now we have some nice bevels on here. And then we can take these things and duplicate, let's say, and just scoot it over. And now we'll have gears that are actually like touching each other. Or maybe we have gears that are interacting with each other. You know, as quickly as I made the one gear, I can make a dozen gears that all work kind of in sync together, right? So that they will be animating. Now the idea is that eventually all of this stuff will be animated onto a main object. So you definitely want to make sure that your main object is nice and neat too. So let me take this and just throw it onto a layer. And just to show you just some ways you can make some different shapes. Say I make a cylinder. So this is kind of like, you know, the lightsaber example that I showed. Like this. I'm going to add some divisions to this. Height ways. Like that. I'm going to take down my main divisions, so to 10. And then what I can do is just go through my faces here. I'm just deleting the caps. That's what that did. And then I can just go through and like delete this thing. Okay, so you see how I deleted just those pieces here. And that gives me just this weird shape. And what should happen is that when I go and extrude it, I get a little bit of thickness. There we go. And now when I smooth it, look at that shape that it gets. See how nice and round that is? So if you tried to create that any other way, like a Booleans, for God's sakes, you would just be screwed. You'd never want to do that, okay? Then you could add your bevels all over the place. And then you'd be cool, and it would still work, and it would all look really, really nice, okay? So what I was getting with that is, let's say that I have my screw bolt type thing here, and I have my gears or whatever. I eventually need to be able to animate these, okay? So what I never want to do is like try to do something like that, you know, like come apart. So I want to obviously lay out the UVs for this one, lay out the UVs for that one. For these types of things, these can just be automatic. So I can just go to my automatic mapping. I can make sure if I zoom way out that this thing is definitely square and everything looks like it's square. I should probably pull this down into here so it can be by the object it is. There it goes. And then in my UVs, somewhere in here, there we go. I need to just lay these out. So I go to shell, grab everything. For something like this, I would definitely use the layout as opposed to just moving them around manually, just because there's so many pieces. And then if we had, let's say, 20 of these things, maybe we want to have different textures on each one. So I'd want to scale it down to, let's say, here. Okay, so I fit it within this little box here. Then I could fit a lot more. I could fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, yeah, about 20, right? I fit 20 of them inside here if I did it that way. Yeah, that'd be 4 and 4, right? I think so. So then what I would do is then I would take this and group it. Oops, actually I want to move this back up to the top of this. Okay, so I'm actually moving it, light bulb, get out of the way. There we go. So I'm moving it to like the very top of this object, and then I'm going to group it, and watch what happens. See how it put the pivot down here? So now I can just rotate it along my object, okay? So now when I'm animating this, I can rotate it this way to unscrew it, and then I can move it away. So that's my basic plan for doing this kind of thing, is that I wanted to make sure that it's, you know, nice, in a nice spot, basically, okay? And then I also want to make sure that my stuff is, again, history is deleted on everything. There we go, group it, and then call these the appropriate thing, screw underscore 01. Here's my light bulb, and the threading, group it. This is something different, you know, I wouldn't have a bunch of these light bulbs all over the place, so I can just group him wherever he is and just call this light bulb 01. Actually, a spiral light bulb. And this one would be regular light bulb 01. Okay, and then again, using your best discretion as to what things should be UV laid out. So for something like this, obviously you can put your checkerboard on it. And I kind of do this as I go. And realistically, I mean, it depends on the mood that I'm in, but it's always best to do it that way. It's always best to create an object and then lay out the UVs for it. Unless you think you're going to be modifying it later, then obviously that would be something you'd want to wait till after it's fully done modeling and you're not going to touch it anymore. All right, so there's 30 and 30. So UVs, cylindrical. There we go. Okay, so for the most part, it's pretty good. I need to stretch out this so it fits there. I need to stretch out this so it fits here. And then something like this area, and maybe that area, I could go through and just do some planar maps. in the Y direction. There we go. And then just scale it up so it fits. Okay. You see how simple it is to do those kinds of things when you just kind of plan out ahead of time. And then inside here, to get this lined up correctly, I'm just going to go to my shell and just make sure that nothing is overlapping. Remember, if it overlaps, that's a no-go. It's no good. Okay? And because I have 3 pieces, much easier to just kind of grab them and lay them out. Grab these and shrink it down. Okay. Cool. Now I like to keep everything together too, so there's my light bulb. So the threads, you can see those aren't really laid out very good. But in one sense they kind of are. If I just assign this surface shader to it, you can see that they are laid out somewhat. They're all consistent. If I go to the shell and click on this and I scale this up like a crazy amount, you'll see that eventually I can get these back to square, which is pretty decent, but it's like huge. So for something like this, that's where we would still want to use maybe the automatic mapping. And even though it looks like, junk, it looks too much like junk. Let's see. Yeah, we basically have too much work to do it the other way. So, yep, let's go back to UV. Let's go back to automatic. Let's make sure that all of these are square, which they are. Good. Okay. And then for the most part, you can see what this looks like. There are some spots where the texture is going to stretch a little bit, so maybe we need to try doing a little bit of unfolding. Unfold 3D. Just give it a minute. I don't know what that is. But it worked, right? So I scale it up. There it is. So tiny. No, it's just all of them laid down like that. That's what that is. Okay, so they're not actually connected. They're just laid down like that. And then this is just, again, another... Oops, that is all one big chunk. Okay, now I can break this up just to make it easier to lay it out. So if I just go kind of every few points, just click on the edges. And then I go to cut UV edges. Now we can try unfolding again. Grab everything, unfold. There we go. Now this piece here, just scale it down. It thinks it needs to be that big. It doesn't need to be that big. There we go. All right, so now we're making more sense of where this is at. Perfect. Okay, so there's our thread. Now, we don't need the thread to be this big, especially since our light bulb is right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink this down and fit it basically into this corner. Okay, so I'm just moving stuff over and kind of positioning it so that each object is kind of on the same thread here. Okay, and again, no overlapping. So there's some overlapping there. That's a no-go. It's got to be changed. So these guys here just kind of come up like that. There we go. See, it's no big deal. Okay, I do the same thing for this, same thing for this, same thing for all the other pieces that I need to do. Even this guy here, I would do, let's assign our material to him first. Okay, not too bad. There are some spots obviously that are stretching, so then we would do, you can always try automatic and just see what you get. In this case, I'm going to get something that is stretched out. One way I can correct that is if I freeze my transforms on an item, and then I go to my automatic from here, you'll see that this then comes in at perfectly square resolutions. Come on, click the scaler, make it bigger. I don't think I'm right on top of it. All right, so there's that. And it would obviously work because we're taking this into Mari to paint it. There are some spots that are stretched out, so I still may need to come in here and unfold it. Okay, still not perfect. This is where I would then go in to say, you know what, let's just do cylindrical map. And then I click the little T, click the little circle, rotate it up, then scale it. Nope. Scale it. Nope. Scale it. There we go. Click the T again. Click the button, drag it around. And you'll see how much nicer this turned out than the other one turned out, right? Now we do have stuff that is on top of other ones. So we still have to cut it and lay that out. That's no big deal though. So I can just go to here, hold down Shift, double click, and see how it grabbed all of that. I'll do the same thing here. And then I'm just going to do automatic on this. Okay, and what it does is it breaks it apart. So it's kind of like a twofer. So it's cutting it and it's laying it out. Then I can just unfold. So there's my two pieces. I hit 6. Not too shabby. Okay, I always like to give them a little bit of margin, so I scale it down just slightly, just to make sure it fits. And make sure we're not touching. Don't touch. Told you kids not to touch each other. Look, there's so much room in this car. I don't know why everyone has to be on top of each other. Ooh, it fits right in there. Put it over here. See, like little pieces. Nobody cares about these. Let's stick them wherever they fit. See, and then this one can come over. Oh, so gorgeous. Okay, so that's what we're doing throughout this entire thing, is just modeling some stuff and then putting it in there. You have to consider how things are put together. So if for some reason this thing has a light bulb on top of it, guess what? That light bulb is going to be right on top of it. If this thing has some threads on it, then we put threads on the inside. If we needed to, oops, let's say smooth this out, another division here, I may need to go in here and just add some extra details to this. You know, something that's not going to be in the actual texture, it might need to be actually built into the surface of this item. Not to go all the way around, but I could go all the way around and then extrude. See, I accidentally selected stuff over there. And on the inside. How horrible is that? Look at, it's my first day in Maya today. Alright, so pretend that's all the way around. Then I can extrude that out, and I would have these extra little 5, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Extra little pieces in here. Okay. Now, if I needed something also to fit the contour of a surface, so like something like this, well, let me grab a different one because that one's already been divided too much. So let's say this is a piece that fits snugly on the top of this. Obviously, that doesn't fit snugly, and when we take it off, obviously it's going to look like we're sticking through. We can't have that. So if I set this down to like 10 divisions, I delete my cap on the bottom, and then I just go into one of my views like front. I can simply just grab my points. Oops, forgot to grab you. Pull them up. Like that. There we go. And so now when we lift it up, it's going to appear, even though it's not perfect, it's going to appear like it's lined up perfectly with that. Okay? And then, of course, I want to, let me hit lighting on this one and say use two-sided. Oh. No, let's have that. So I hit 3 on this. I want to give this some thickness eventually too, so maybe I would use an extrude. Just push that in some. Now sometimes I'll use the extrude and just push with the arrow. And do that one just so you can see the other methods. Sometimes I extrude and I will use the thickness here to control that. It all depends on the surface. Sometimes one works better than the other. And then of course, Bevel City. There we go. And so now this thing fits pretty snug on top of there. And we could add other stuff to it just to, again, add some design. Okay, the more design stuff you add to this, obviously it's going to be more work, but it's going to look better. And in the end, you want a piece that is better looking over too simplistic. There you go. So you see that actually like feels like it's actually snug on top of there. And if I go in here and add some bevels, then it'll feel like that is actually a hard surface. Cap right on top of it. Okay. So all the stuff that we have to consider. And then this, obviously you couldn't unscrew this because it would cut into that. So you'd have to come up with some other way of how this thing maybe just pops off, right? Maybe you just like go and then it pops off. All right, so let me save this thing into my instructional scenes. All right, so that should get you at least on your way to getting started for this, so that you have a good idea of where you're going to need to start adding some detail into it. So in the half hour I've lectured, you can see how many objects I built. By this point, you should work on really getting faster at building things, right? Even if it's something as simple as this, it's better than trying to create something super complex that takes you 3 hours to do. Because these things are going to go a lot further, especially with the fact that I could add these really anywhere into the scene, and it'll just look cool, right? So I duplicate this up here. Not going to match right there, but that's fine, because I'm just going to group it and then rotate it. You see there's like a little gear, and I can duplicate and scoot it back. And you don't fit, so you do get deleted. And then I can grab these 3 groups, hit the up arrow, duplicate, and then rotate this around positive 61. And you'll see how I have those. So you can see how I can add just this extra bit of detail like all over the place. Okay, and again, that will just come out being a lot more realistic looking than it would otherwise. So think about not only that, like, you know, what things you could add on the outside, but also what things you could add like on the inside to make it feel more realistic. Default material. So with something like this, what did I do? It's there. 5, 4, 5, 6. I don't want to show it. Whatever. So for something like this, if it just opened up, it's weird. Maybe I hit 7. Nope, I don't know what it's doing. For something like this, we could have obviously some threads inside here, or some way to kind of lock things together. And it may not even need to be full-blown threads. We could just have, let's say, a cylinder that we rotated. Always gotta remember, what software am I using? It's such a mind trip. All right, so let's say something like this. So I'm just going to delete that. Okay, that's good there. So I just created this like little slim piece right here that I could then extrude. And then I can duplicate it and rotate it around. And it's nothing fancy. It's just something that gives us the appearance of more, the appearance of something extra being inside this item and how things are connecting together. So it may even be that you go online and look at different items and how things are connected together. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop this, and we're just going to continue with these little like mini demos of how to do things that you need to do to get your stuff done.